This is Heroine Addiction, presented by That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and where we take pride in not conforming to target gender demographics. I'm Isekai Sensei Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
I'm the silent, red-eyed, silver-haired bodyguard. I don't talk, but I eat a lot of candy.
Be sure to find us on social media, which you can find links for on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. So today, we're going to be covering the reason why Raeliana ended up at the Duke's Mansion, which was recommended to us by Rena. So thanks a lot, Rena. I hope the fact that I'm thanking her is a positive thing.
Rena's always got the inside scoop on these. I don't think we've had a bad Rena recommendation.
No, I don't think so. Well, as always, I will read the summary, or they're not really summaries, are there? What would be a better word? Teaser?
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, I'm going to read it, and then we'll get into the discussion. Poisoned to death by her own betrothed? Yuna didn't wake up in a novel story just to get killed off again as an unfortunate extra. To change her story, she needs a cover. 6 months pretending to be the fake fiancé of the novel's male protagonist, Duke Noah Winknight. But will this cold-hearted, angel-faced demon of a man really help her avoid another ill-fated ending? I gotta say, that's one of the better teasers we've had in a while.
That's the first couple chapters. Yeah.
A lot of them that we've read recently, the teaser is just like, wait, I don't think that has anything to do with this story.
You had an editor who flipped through it and wrote the ad copy in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a thing about a princess and a prince.
So before we get into this, I think it's probably a good idea to say that we are going to spoil a lot of stuff here. This series was completed more than 3 years ago. So I think it started, where is that? The series started in mid 2019. So this is, it feels weird to say this, but it's fairly old. 2019 shouldn't be a while ago, but it is. So deal with it.
Before COVID and after COVID. That was a whole different era.
So the point I was trying to make was, it's been going on for a while. There's sort of no reason to have not read this at this point. We're going to spoil a whole bunch of stuff, which we normally do, but it's good to give everyone a warning.
I'll add this time, if you haven't read it, I don't usually think spoilers matter too much, but this time they do. I think you will enjoy it more if you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So just and if you're committing to going to read it right now, don't look at the comments in Bato, because I finally found those people that are like desperate for the upvote.
There was one chapter that had some intriguing things in it, and I got down to the bottom and someone had a spoiler in there, and I just couldn't help myself. So I'm not going to comment
on the same chapter.
What?
I think I did the same thing on the same chapter.
I'm not going to comment on how well I think they did with the mystery aspect of this, because I found myself reading this going, oh, it's so obvious that this is what's going on. And then I had to stop myself and go, no, No, I already know what's happening because I spoiled it for myself. I don't know if they're keeping it hidden properly or not. I couldn't help myself from thinking like, it's so obvious what's happening. Why haven't you figured it out yet?
Yeah. No, I actually think I guess it's a spoiler that there is a twist, but I think the twist is a good one.
There was actually a point where I thought that again after something happened, and then like the next chapter, Raeliana was like, pretty sure this is what's going on. I was like, oh, okay. All right, we're all on the same page now. So I read through this, and it was moderately compelling. I'll say that. This is currently rated 9.2. And while I don't think that's an unfair score, I do think that if everyone reread it today, the score would be lower. Most of the comments and all that kind of stuff are from, over 1,000 days ago. So I think this gains some points by being older, just because there wasn't as much stuff back then,
Well, that could be. I don't really know too much about the history of the genre, but I don't know. For me, I don't think I'm going to go as high as a 9. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I just don't think it's that good. Because in the annals of what we've done, what we've covered, this would be one of like the top 3 or 4 rated. Mm-hmm. And there's no way. There's no way it's that high.
I don't know. I liked this one. I liked this one more than, I don't know. It's going to come out like, I think personal preference for me is actually pretty high on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. There's as we go through and as we rubric, I think there's going to be a lot of lost points.
Right.
Especially, I assume this is a romance rubric.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's probably gonna lose some points. But, yeah. You want to jump into it, and we can go. I don't know how much further I could go without just talking about story elements. So
yeah, so spoilers are going to happen now. We should probably sort of just go through all of the major plot points, just so everybody's on the same page. So this is a classic isekai where you've got your Korean woman who dies in a certain way and ends up inside a novel. And in this circumstance, she ends up as a side character who is a side character that's sort of like the reason for the novel in the first place, because she's someone who gets killed off early on, which gives the original female lead the kick to sort of get into the actual story. Now, because our protagonist has read this book, she knows what's going to happen, so she's got to do her best to not die, which, that's a normal thing. So
that happens in every Otome isekai. We're all just gonna. You have to have a plan, a short-term plan that's going to get you out of the villainous role or the inciting incident role, and then you're going to go and you're going to live in the countryside and you're going to make necklaces for the next 50 years. But it never happens that way.
You know why? It's because none of these protagonists have read Otome isekai. They read the original romance novels.
Yeah, they're only reading fantasy romance.
Right. They don't know the isekai tropes. They just know the romance tropes.
Yep.
If one of us or one of our listeners gets isekai'd into one of these, then they'd know exactly what's going on. They'd be like, well, I've immediately changed the story because that's how this works. If there's like a cold Duke of the North, you know,
He's
I know
cool.
he's gonna fall in love with me, so I'm just gonna be cool with it the whole time. The original female lead, that shit doesn't matter. She's probably evil. Like,
If I've seen this comment many times in many places, but it's so true. If us or any of our listeners got reincarnated into one of these things, we would probably be screwed because we would mix up all the details and we wouldn't remember which one we're in.
right? Yeah.
Somebody would tell us, I'm Duke Windknight. And it's like, oh, God, which one was that?
This might be one of the ones where I would actually remember. Although I can't say for sure because I just read it. So, but there's probably 20 of these that I'd be like, oh, it's this one. I know exactly what's going on. And then the other 100 or so that I'd be like, oh crap.
There's a lot to blend together. I'd be looking at the colors of people's hair, like, okay, what's going on? Is it blonde? Blonde. Okay, it's maybe the hourglass one.
Not to mention the fact that a lot of times these ladies get, reincarnated into these novels, and they are also very capable because they were like in college in Korea, or they're, a career worker who has a bunch of knowledge and everything. Like they know accounting and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, I know how to add numbers together.
Does anyone need any tasks automated?
Right.
I C#.net.
Oh my God, there's no computers in this world. What am I going to do? I know how a computer works. I just don't know how to build one. That's not going to help me.
Yeah, like guys, check out this von Neumann machine. Yeah, your kids are going to love it.
Anyway, so where was I? Right, so she goes in, she gets reincarnated. She has to stop herself from getting killed by her fiance, or they get married and then he kills her. So the fiance has been working at this for a while. And there's something to bring up here. I'll get a little bit further in first. The fiance wants to basically get her family's money. Her family is a non-lineage nobility. They're a baron because I guess they bought the title because they're like,
yes,
they're literally an oil baron.
Yes, I did make fun of this. It starts off with an explanation of the nouveau riche versus the old nobility, and it's kind of setting itself up. It's taking the class structure from like the 19th century and placing it in like a 16th or 17th century setting, where her name is Raeliana Macmillan.
Yeah.
Which is a weird name to go with all the other names, but nobody ever cares about that. And her family owns oil. Like they have oil wells, I guess. And with that oil, they have bought the title of Baron because I would imagine at some point the author of this light novel heard the term oil baron and misunderstood it. Or they understood it perfectly and it's an amazing joke. Either way, I laughed.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that.
If that was on purpose, that was solid.
So anyway, so the fiance is like regular nobility, but like they're not super rich for I think they might have gone into it. I don't remember exactly. So he's like, I'm going to marry this girl. And then her dad is going to be like, you can be the heir. Because, like, he has 2 daughters, which Rosemary, such a great little kid character. She's great. Raeliana's little sister.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about her.
She's not in it for like most of the time, and then like you see her again in like chapter 100 or something, and she's great. So, yeah. So the fiance, they get married, and then he slowly poisons her over the course of, I don't know how long, but it was like he adds poison to her tea every day, just a little bit, and so eventually she gets sick and dies. And then he can take over the family and get all the money, I guess, however that works.
This is a nitpick, but at one point, Raeliana, the reincarnated Korean woman, comments on how her family would be really, really rich if they lived in a time where oil mattered. I thought that was a weird thing to comment on.
What are they using the oil for?
They're not an industrialized society. I guess it's just a novelty. I mean, it's a good lubricant, maybe. I don't know. They have guns. They must oil them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you use oil for that.
Can you imagine if they're that rich? Because it's shown that they are significantly rich. Like not Duke Win-Knight rich, but like her mom at one point is like, let's buy all new furniture because the Duke is coming to visit. And it's like, you can just do that. You have so much money, you can replace all of the furniture. I assume they didn't replace like the bedroom furniture, but they have a mansion that has like multiple sitting rooms and a huge dining room and all that stuff. And they're just going to replace all their furniture. She says for the spring season or something like that.
Oh yes. Let's get the spring collection. He's going to come here and he's going to see our fall couch and he's going to think we're pores.
Which, some of the best, there's a lot of humor in this. I did chuckle out loud quite a few times. But that one specifically got me, like a laugh out loud part where Raeliana says to Noah, she's like, make sure you mention the plates. Because she bought like these super gaudy plates. And he's like, oh, these plates are beautiful. They're like an art piece, practical and beautiful. And the mom is just like beaming.
I did. You know, I'll be honest with you. This guy, not my type. And Noah? I don't know what. Yeah, that is something I'm realizing the more I read romance is like I have a type of man.
Of course.
But I don't know, for whatever reason I was trying to decide, like, do I not like this romance or this character, or is it just not my thing? And I think it's just not my thing.
Yeah. I sort of I don't quite like this as a romance, but I do like it as like a real relationship.
Yeah.
The way that they play off of each other and they tease each other and all that kind of stuff is like, oh, this is so real and refreshing. They're not like
they're not
being fake.
They're not perfect for each other.
Yeah.
They step on each other's toes sometimes. They genuinely like go over the line a couple of times and have to apologize.
But it's like, it's fun. It's a fun relationship. But he's not just constantly doing every possible thing to make her happy at all times. Like, even though he does do that from time to time, it's not the main thing. He teases her so much, but then she's also not just taking it lying down.
Yeah. And I like the little moments where he makes up for being, I don't know, like overbearing and weird sometimes. Like when he's risen up the mom. I like that. I like that because I mean, he's the Duke or whatever, I don't fully understand. He's the Duke.
He was made a duke, so he was the second prince.
Is a
And
Duke better than second prince? I don't
well,
know.
I mean, in terms of power structure, I think it. I don't know. None of
I
these
don't know.
people actually know how
Yeah.
nobility really works, but like my assumption would be that he needs something to do. And so instead of just be a prince while his brother is the king, he's going to go off and be a duke to like have his domain and be in charge of stuff, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I like that. I don't know. I I don't think he's that good looking. This could be an unpopular opinion. I definitely think of all the male characters in this story, he's the least good looking.
I don't know about the least.
I mean, not counting the guys who are supposed to be creepy old men. If we're talking like the king, the the guard, the Raeliana guy, I forget his name now. He's got
I
gray
don't,
hair and red
oh,
eyes.
Adam.
Adam. Yeah, I'd take any of them.
Justin.
Yeah,
This is captain of the guard.
I would take.
The one other knight, who is an idiot.
Yeah, no, I would take. I'll tell you what. There's Justin. I'm okay with that.
The high priest,
And yep,
who
the high priest even is a little. I mean, when he's not a kid, that's a thing.
yeah,
And that girl knight, I forget her name, but I like the weird. I kind of wish they'd done more with her. Maybe they do in the light novel. There's a lot of side characters that are introduced that are really interesting, and then they kind of just go away for a while.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I feel like is missing, and that's sort of one of the main problems that I have with this, is that I think it's really easy to get lost, and I think I would have been going crazy if I had been reading this week to week as it was coming out.
Yeah, week to week would be tough. Um, I don't know. I think maybe as a serialized light novel, it works better.
Yeah.
I think the best fit for this would be as like an adaptation into some kind of long running TV show. Because there's a lot of cool characters and interactions in the world that it's fun to just sort of hang out in this comic.
So you'd have it fleshed out more than it is.
Yeah, like there's little moments where there's one female knight. She's very capable. She keeps up with the male knights and often exceeds them. But there's a scene where the knights spar.
Yeah.
Like they have a like a wrestling match or like a judo competition or something.
They
whatever
call
it
it
is.
boxing, and then she like flips the guy over her shoulder, and so it's like, I don't think that's boxing.
It's not how we do it. But I like how all the maids are cheering for the female knight.
Yeah.
And there's just little moments like that where it's like, oh, you see that like these characters exist in a world, and they don't just stop existing when the main characters aren't there.
Right.
They each like interact with each other and they have their own interests and it, I don't know, it feels more lived in than a lot of the Otome isekai we read, which feel like very claustrophobic almost.
Yeah. Although it still has that problem that they all do, where it's like, there's not enough people in this world.
Yeah.
Like, where are all of the commoners and everything? Like, you see them sometimes when they go to the festival or whatever, but it's like, because the story's centered around nobles and nobility, it's like you have this such a small window into the world, and you don't sort of get a wider picture. The world building is somewhat limited because of that. But again, like that's a problem that every single one of these series has.
I think that's going to be a problem with the whole webtoon thing, because I think the reusable assets almost necessitates that you stick to the same sorts of scenes, like indoor, in a ballroom, in a library, in a bedroom, in a waiting room. Like it's, if you're not going to draw dynamic backgrounds, like how many scenes can you do?
Right.
But I did like for a webtoon that is, I think, heavily relying on reusable assets. The attempts at action were creative.
Yeah.
They, I don't know, this is a weird thing, but like, this person did not do a lot of custom work in terms of the actions and stuff. Like, it's not like what was the one? Was it Concubine Walkthrough? Or not Concubine Walkthrough, Master Villainous the Invincible, where they have a bunch of fight scenes. And so they have to do a lot of custom art to get the fight scenes going. They don't do a lot of that, but they also don't just like shy away from the scene entirely. Right. They find a way to stage it. So I liked that. I don't know what to give that like on a rubric. I don't really quantify for like resourcefulness, I guess. But
speaking of Concubine Walkthrough and Master Villainous the Invisible, I did think it was interesting that like just all of a sudden it turned into a wuxia.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're just going along, nobility and all this stuff. We're doing these plots. And then all of a sudden there's like Chinese stuff. And I'm just like, whoa, okay. And you know what? Once they pass that part, it never comes up again. There's a whole thing with like their holy beast or something getting attached to Raeliana. And then they just, there's nothing. They don't do anything with that plot point.
I dead serious. I get to the part where, so yeah, in the story, there's a part where these, dancers, come from an Asian coded country, and they wear, kimonos or whatever. And they put Raeliana in that like Asian style dress, and they say like, oh, there's this legend that if you confess your love on the first snow, then they're setting it up like he's gonna see her in like this traditional clothing, and like maybe that clothing suits her more because she's actually a Korean person in this body. And maybe he's gonna see like some inner beauty or something, and then, no, they just don't do anything with it. It's
yeah. She just immediately changes back into her normal clothes.
She's like, whoa, that was neat. And then
I was like, once they passed that part, I was just like, what was that for? What were we doing here?
I thought I missed a chapter. I actually went back.
Yeah.
I thought I missed something.
It never comes up again. It's never like, oh, in the East, they have this special medicine. We need to use this connection that I've created to like get this special medicine or something like that. No, it just never comes up again. I would
be very interested to know, for somebody who read the light novel, what was that scene like in the book? Because I almost wonder if it just turned into too much work.
Maybe.
Like we started doing it and then we had to just abandon it. It was just not going to work out. Because that's what it felt like.
Yeah. Okay. We got really off track there. Where we were talking, so the fiance poisons her, and then so she's this is still the beginning.
Just skip to the contract, I guess.
Right. So she's like, I need to not die, so I need to get out of this marriage. She tries to get out of it by just, being mean to him, but because he's got a goal in mind, he's not playing that. So she's like, I need someone more powerful than, what is he, a count or something? And so she confronts Duke Noah Windknight, because she has some knowledge from reading the book that she can leverage to get him to protect her. So she confronts him. She says, let's have a contract engagement. I have some secret information that I'll give you like the details of if you do this for me. And he's like, okay. He probably goes, interesting.
I do want to point out the one plot point is there's this kind of gets lost too. There's like a political struggle between the nouveau riche and the old nobility.
Yeah, it doesn't come back up until like the very end, and only in sort of like a passing way.
And the old nobility wants all this stuff passed. They want to pass all these laws that would limit the nouveau riche, but the king is actually courting the nouveau riche, and he would like their power to grow. So he's trying to put off enacting these laws, and we can't enact the laws without the royal seal, which is a stamp, literally a stamp. And I lost it. I don't know where it is.
Yep.
So I can't enact any laws without my seal. We're going to have to like nationwide hunt for this seal, guys. I'm sorry. Like, if I had the seal, I would absolutely stamp these laws. Everyone knows I don't support, but I don't have the seal. So like, I can't stamp it. Like, it's so weird. And then Raeliana shows up and she's like, I know where the seal is. And he's like, hey, shut up.
It's funny because they basically completely drop the fact that there's like these two factions until the end. There's like this inciting incident with the villainess, and they're like, oh, and this duke is on this faction, and so he hates this person, and then like nothing comes of the fact that there's these two factions. Everything just continues as normal. And throughout the whole thing, like the king's obviously still in power and telling people what to do and everything, but also like, I guess they're just not doing anything that would require the royal seal, which sort of makes me think like, is it really that important?
No.
The country is still functioning.
Yeah.
Heck, they even talk about going to war. Apparently going to war doesn't require the royal seal.
It's a police action. I never declared it. Yeah, I mean, as we talk, I'm starting to see why you think a 9 is perhaps generous.
Yeah.
It's a fun ride. I didn't notice all this stuff until I sat down to think about it. But yeah, it's a little problematic.
So let's see. Yada, yada, yada. She meets the high priest who's like super old, but he's like, he looks like a kid because they like seal his divine power because it's too much. And somehow sealing his power makes him younger. I don't quite understand how that works. But he basically, I don't know what the word for this is, because he didn't like fall in love with Raeliana, but he loves her.
He adopts her like a pet.
And it's not like an official adoption, but she's able to translate some of like the ancient holy scriptures, because for whatever reason she has like this amazing grasp of language. And I'm unclear if it's like when she was talking to those Eastern people, if they were speaking Korean, and so she could just do that because of her past life knowledge, or if the original Raeliana, because she does have her memories, if the original Raeliana just studied a whole bunch of stuff and just knew these languages.
I thought there was some one-off line about how it was strange when she was reincarnated that she never learned she doesn't remember ever learning any of these symbols, but she can still read.
Okay.
And so I think it was just a quirk of the reincarnation that she understands all languages.
That would make sense. I don't, that didn't stick out enough to me that I was like, oh, it's because of this. The
It
one thing
seems like a
that,
pretty big ability, yeah.
yeah, the one thing that did stick out to me was that Raeliana's really good at shooting. And they explain that by the fact that, like, she would go hunting with her dad when she was younger. And so whenever they connect guns into things, and like she's really good with guns, which actually doesn't happen enough. I was sort of just like, why don't you have a gun on you all the time?
Why doesn't anyone?
Yeah,
Why do they
right.
have swords until
Yeah.
sometimes there's
So
a gun?
so when that would come up where it's like, oh, she's really good at shooting stuff, that made sense, because it's like, oh yeah, she grew up with that. That was the original Raeliana who had that skill that transferred over. So she gets with Duke Windknight. They deal with this plot for her getting killed. I'll circle back to that in just a little bit, because there's a specific thing there that I'm confused about. They go through a bunch of stuff with all this like political things going on, and the hidden seal. They sort of get through that pretty quickly. Like I said, they meet up with the high priest. The high priest is like, oh, you're great. That situation gets set up because of Duke Windknight won the hunting competition, and the person who gets presented the greatest catch at the hunting competition is like an honorary priestess who does some kind of blessing ceremony. And so it's always been Vivian, who is the king's fiance, which that's another thing that I'm confused about that I'll get into.
Oh yeah, she is. I was like, wait, that can't be right. No, she is though.
Yeah.
That's
And so she goes to the temple to do the ceremony. Bunch of stuff happens. She's got this gem that explodes. She's like wearing it on her head. The high priest saves her from that. And then there's the whole kind of like, what happened? Who gave her that? Where'd that come from? That kind of thing. Because nobody knows where the gem came from, because it was just like sitting on her nightstand one day. And so she's like, oh, that's pretty. I'm going to wear that. Let's see. What happens in the middle? There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of it is not super consequential.
well. So when he heals her for the gem or whatever, is that where he discovers the traces of dark magic?
No, I think that's not until the king kidnaps her, and then she passes out, and then he
That's
comes
right.
after that.
That's right.
Which, the character of the king is pretty cool. Like, that's a good character. Not that I like him, but like it's a good character. However, the entire introduction of the king, where he like calls her to the palace because he's like, who did my brother fall in love with? This is crazy. He doesn't love anybody. And he just like kidnaps her for like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And that whole introduction of him, I'm like, I hate this guy. He's awful. But he does redeem himself as a character. I still don't like him as a person, but like as a character, I think he's interesting. So important plot points. She meets the second male lead, Justin, who is the captain of the Royal Guard. And there's an interesting back and forth with their relationship, because neither of them knows who the other one is, like in society, for a while. And so like he falls in love with Raeliana immediately. She doesn't fall in love with him at all, because she's not swayed by looks, which good for her. But he also doesn't know that she's Raeliana Macmillan, Duke Windknight's fiance. And so there's all this back and forth. At one point, she loses her engagement ring, and he finds it. And there's a funny situation around that. We end up with Noah going, you don't need that ring. Get rid of it. It was around another man's neck. Here's one with a huge diamond in it. By the way, I actually love you. let's stay together.
Yeah. Like, I don't like the romance with Justin. And,
He's way too pushy.
well, none of the guys is great
Yeah.
when it comes to, like, respecting boundaries. I mean, they're not, like, crazy offensive with it. But
Noah
I
is
guess
the best with that, and he's also not good. So, like,
yeah, I was gonna say. Obviously, that's something this author is into. Like it would be weird if Raeliana was uncomfortable with it, but she's not really. They treat it like teasing, and she stands her ground when she needs to, so it's fine.
and
But
we should say none of the men. Raeliana has a line, and none of the men cross it.
yeah.
Someone reading this, their line might not be as far as Raeliana's line, and a lot of this stuff might fall under harassment, but it doesn't for Raeliana. So that's important.
Yeah, and I think that's the romantic aspect that they're playing with is the
Yeah.
push and pull of the teasing and the power dynamics and everything. And
There were only a couple times where I was uncomfortable with the back and forth that was going on.
there's the Wind Knight, the male lead, is a little pushier than I think I would like. But, I mean, I think it's fine. I'm not going to say like this is a problematic author or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's definitely
think
not the weirdest thing I've encountered. But
just the kind of thing
weird-
where some people might be uncomfortable with it.
the weird thing to me is Justin is the more romantic story. Like,
Yeah.
they meet at like a grave or something, and she's there because she's looking. That's where the seal's buried.
Right.
But for all he knows, she's visiting a loved one, and they have this like back and forth where they both kind of disguise their identities, and there's even the whole masquerade ball thing. But like that whole back and forth of like, oh, our places in society would prevent us from ever doing this because it is forbidden. But because we have played this game of disguise, we might fall in love, and now we've got us a problem because now we've let it go too far, and we're going to risk our position in society for our love. Like, that would be a romantic story. Instead, it's just like, yeah, I like those kinds of stories. We're not doing that here. I want to tease it, but we're not doing that. She's going to go with the guy who has no facial expression and is just kind of possessive, and that's hot to me. And I'm like,
Well, I will say that
if
part
that's
of
what
it
you're
is-
into,
part of it is that Noah does open up more and more throughout the series.
I guess. I don't know. He is like a plank of wood to me. I think she has no chemistry with Justin. I will agree with that. She obviously does not want Justin, which
No
hamstrings the
romantic
romance.
chemistry.
Yeah.
There's chemistry there, but it's not romance.
No. So I don't. Yeah, Justin. Whatever. You knew it was never going to happen. She's going to choose the Duke, but like, man, I don't really get it. I guess that was my thing. I was like, I don't get it. He's okay. But that's the thing. She's like, oh, he's so handsome. And I was like, is he? Is he? He's just...
to be fair, he might be the most handsome one in the series.
What?
You don't
The
think?
Duke?
No, Justin.
Oh, yeah.
you're
No,
talking
yeah. No. Yeah. That guy's hot. Duke is like what? Like 120 pounds soaking wet. He just has that flat anime haircut that everyone has.
I think that's maybe an idealized Korean beauty.
maybe. You know what though? It's not even like the king looks better.
You know who he looks like? He looks like the main character from Solo Leveling.
He looks like the main character. He looks like just an average Asian dude.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. Like, I
think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I mean, maybe when you're looking at this cover, I'm looking at the cover right now of them like hugging or whatever, or holding each other, like they're dancing. She's obviously supposed to pop. You're looking at her. You're not looking at him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it. I guess that was my main thing. I'm probably where a bunch of like, I've probably crossed the threshold now in the Otome Isekai thing where like, I'm just deeply troubled about who she wound up with. This is just not my, like, it didn't cater to my fantasy, so it is wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got through a bunch of stuff. Going to get into actual real spoiler stuff right now. Not the stuff before wasn't, but this is like the actual mystery of the series, right? So very far into the series, we get hints that the original female lead, Beatrice, who should have shown up by now, is actually sort of the villainess in this regard.
She's a witch.
We get hints of like, oh, she's sort of behind the scenes with these people who are doing this bad stuff. And you go, oh, that's interesting and weird. Like, what's going on here? She doesn't actually show up as like an active character until like 3/4 of the way through. It was actually, as I kept, because it was like the end of season 2 or something like that they do sort of like a reveal of her, and it's like, wow, they waited a really long time for this.
Well, they do a reveal earlier with Vivian. Was that
Vivian,
the redhead? Yeah.
And I didn't make the best connection with this. Vivian is Justin's sister.
Oh my God. I wondered why the hell they were talking. I didn't even. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I missed that.
They said their last name a bunch of times, but they never explicitly came out and went Justin's sister or Vivian's brother. They're at one point someone's just like, Shamal. Oh, Shamal. And I'm just like, what?
You know, I have like brownish hair. My brother has orange hair, and my sister has blonde hair. And I'm just sitting here like, how are you gonna draw a comic like this and give siblings different hair colors? This is unacceptable. This is egregious.
So from sort of the beginning, we think that Vivian is like, she's jealous of Raeliana because she actually wants to be with Noah, even though she's the king's fiance, which is like, really? But apparently that's how it was in the original one. And so Raeliana's like, oh, Vivian's doing all this stuff to try and get me. But then we find out that like, oh, actually Beatrice is sort of the mastermind behind this stuff. And she's just using Vivian to sort of enact a lot of these plans as sort of like this cover. One of the reasons being Vivian is going to be the queen. And so as soon as Vivian's the queen, all of the bad things go away because you can't prosecute the queen, right? Or something like that.
History begs to differ. The big clue. So there's that you get the hint that Beatrice is masterminding Vivian's schemes. And then you get the information that Raeliana is doing. She's the victim of some kind of dark magic, and her soul isn't fully attached to her body.
Yeah,
and she needs to find a way to like fully integrate into this body, or she's going to die. And then Raeliana realizes that she's missing memories from before she was reincarnated. She does not, she knows what happened in the book, but unlike most Otome Isekai protagonists, she has not like inherited the full memories of the person whose body she's in.
Right. And so this is important because she has some of Raeliana's memories. There is stuff that she remembers of Raeliana's like childhood and stuff like that that weren't in the book. So she knows that she has some of those memories, which means the fact that she's missing a large chunk of memories from like right before she came into the body means that there's something missing. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, and so she starts trying to investigate Raeliana's behavior before the reincarnation event.
Yeah.
And Raeliana was hanging out with a lot of dark magicians. And,
I mean, I think
she
just the
was
one, but yeah.
visiting sketchy parts of town. And I like to imagine it was just like a whole satanic temple. They were
I mean, it used to be. It's just not anymore.
performing a black mass. Now it's a museum in Santa Barbara. No. And so I think at the end of season 2 is when we get the confirmation. Like, I do think there's more than enough clues to have guessed what happened here. But if you didn't, at the end of season 2, we see that Beatrice is also having a disconnect with her body.
Yeah.
Now, I read the Bato spoiler, and I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it would have clicked for me.
As I went through it, I think it was hidden enough that it would be fun. It would be fun to read and not know what's going on and like figure it out.
This is such a tropey, rules-based genre that follows the same blueprint so often that I think my brain has been trained to exclude anything that doesn't fit the script of what I expect. And I think I would have thought double reincarnation. I think I would have thought there's another person like from our world.
Yeah. That's what you
here.
yeah. Especially based on everything that was going on. Yeah.
Yeah. But what actually happened.
But well, I will say, if you examine it from that perspective, you go, well, why isn't this person who reincarnated into Beatrice doing the normal stuff? She stays hidden for so long. Like, why wouldn't she come back and try to get in there, you know?
I think I would. I like to believe I would have solved it, but I think there's an equal chance I would have spun off into an infinitely more complicated scenario where like maybe it's a person from our world who's been reincarnated like 6 times and they're in some Groundhog Day loop and now they're trying to like smash their way out or something. And like,
Yeah.
I would have gone full blown Pepe Silvia with this, I think. But what actually happened is the original Raeliana put her soul in Beatrice's body,
Yeah.
creating a vacuum, I guess.
That's what it seems like.
And instead of Freaky Friday swapping souls, I guess she just kicked out Beatrice's soul.
Well, that's one of my main questions for this. When I got to the end, I was like, where's Beatrice?
Yeah.
Where's the original Beatrice? Because she didn't die in the original one. So presumably her soul is still somewhere in this world, but because they specifically say, if a soul gets kicked out, they'll try to find a suitable container. She's nowhere. It's not ever brought up again. I was just like, where's the original Beatrice?
Yeah. There needs to be like a sequel series where it's like the reason why Beatrice wound up in Justin's bedroom. And that'll just make everybody happy. Then we could just have, the romance that should have been.
Yeah. And there was like 15 or something like that. Side story 10, 11. At the end,
Oh, I did
they
not
could
make
they
it.
could have done something. They could have gave us some answers, but no.
Did you make it through all the side stories?
I did read them. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
pretty
I'll
good.
be interested. I'll be interested to know at the end what they dealt with.
So yeah, so it turns out Beatrice is the mastermind behind this, but it's not actually Beatrice. It's the original Raeliana because, and this was the thing. I'm going to get into sort of some questions I have here because what happened was Raeliana was going through the normal story, but this dark priestess shows up and goes, "Hey, you're going to die early. Do you want to change your fate? Here's how we can do that." At which point I was like, well, but that's not how it goes in the original story, right? So why is it going differently this time?
Yeah. So who's this dark priestess?
The dark priestess, who then apparently she kills later. Because
That was Beatrice from the future, who came
maybe.
back as a dark priestess, and she time paradox erased herself.
Why would Beatrice do that, though?
Pepe Sylvia.
So
There was no
Raeliana
Beatrice.
gets some dark magic cast, so she goes into Beatrice because she wants to change her fate. It's implied that she remembers being poisoned by her husband, but like the dark priestess shows up like in the past, right? And so
Well, I was confused as to what was a memory of Raeliana's life and what was knowledge from the book.
right. It gets a little confusing. And the most confusing thing to me is they talk about how like the original Raeliana / Beatrice now set up this plan where the fiance is actually working with another person, Jake Langston, to get rid of Raeliana. But that has to have started before she was reincarnated. So I'm really confused about the timeline because Beatrice is like in another country studying at the start of this, or at least that's what we think. But based on the timelines, she would have had to have started this conspiracy sort of a while ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, did Raeliana switch her soul and go into the past? Or because otherwise the timing doesn't work out.
I think you may have found a plot hole or something that fell apart in adaptation. Because I definitely do not think we are meant to think that she switched bodies and went back in time.
Yeah.
I think we're meant to think that the body swap, it's not a swap, that the body stealing happened.
Shuffling.
And that then this person from Korea got dumped into Raeliana. Now, full confession, I am about 30 chapters shy of the end. Do they explain why a person from Korea got reincarnated into Raeliana?
Yes.
Okay.
So, all right, here we go. So there's Beatrice and Vivian, right? And they are just trying all kinds of stuff to get rid of Raeliana. Because if Raeliana doesn't die, then Raeliana's soul in Beatrice is going to die or get kicked out or something like that. Because the way that the soul swapping works, if there's another compatible body in the world, the soul wants to leave and go to that one, right? So Beatrice needs Raeliana to die so that she stops her soul from getting kicked out.
So her soul stops tugging. Yeah. Okay.
So that's the main sort of crux of the the whole thing. That's why she's doing this. Presumably, otherwise, she would just be like, okay, whatever. I'm not Raeliana anymore. I don't have to suffer and die, and everything's cool. But she goes, I have to get rid of her because she was originally supposed to die, but then there's this other soul in there who didn't go through the regular problems and die, and so now I need to get rid of her.
Is there now? This is why you don't encourage my out of the box thinking in Otome Isekai. Is there a reason she can't just go back to her original body now? Like if she can just kick a soul out of a body and swap into it, like, okay, hey, you dodged the death thing, go back to your Raeliana body.
Well, that might have worked, but she already killed the Dark Priestess to cover up what was going on.
Okay. They outsmarted me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Now, it actually turns out there's one other Dark Priestess left in the world.
You would think you would want a backup of all these people.
Now, our Raeliana finds out about this Dark Priestess. She's holed up in this super high security prison. And so one of the knights goes and gets this person. Iosa? I forget exactly what her name is, but she's a very fun and interesting character. She's insane. The main problem is she's not a full Dark Priestess. She was adopted by a former Dark Priest right before like the Purge happened. And so she's got some basic knowledge and she has a lot of like the fortune telling stuff that's going on, but she doesn't actually know how to do like the spirit swapping and stuff like that. So this priestess helps Raeliana to gain the memories that she's missing. She has that ability.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it.
They're squeezing it a lot here at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
you stopped right at the best part.
Wow. I feel like we spent way too much time making cookies for Adam.
You're gonna need to go and finish right after we're done here.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a bunch of plots going on. Raeliana has basically told Beatrice that she knows what's going on because she figured all that stuff out. So they're sort of like in a stalemate because they're in this high society, and so they have to go back and forth. Vivian and Beatrice sort of kidnap Raeliana at one point during a festival or something. And
I think I literally just put together that Vivian is engaged to the king and she wants to get with Duke Winright for some reason.
I'll get into that in a minute.
Gross.
So at this thing, Vivian's like, hey, come into this room. Here, have some tea. And Raeliana's like, you're obviously trying to poison me. Vivian's like, how did she figure it out?
We've been enemies for like 2 years now.
Yeah, right. And so then Beatrice shows
me up.
This was the first time that Raeliana and Beatrice like actually meet, right? And Beatrice is like, just knock her out. And so Vivian hits her on the head with a vase. And they tie her up and they pour oil around and set the place on fire, right? So there's a huge thing going on.
What?
Everybody in the palace is like, oh my God, everything's on fire. And so
I'm sorry, wait, she's knocked out. And instead of just like cut her throat, they're like set the place on fire and
they're
leave.
trying to cover it up, right?
What in the James Bond is this?
The problem is that Noah and Adam just knock down all of the walls to find Raeliana.
I like that.
Oh, and there's an important plot point about like you're not allowed to have swords in the palace, like unless you're a guard. And so the fact that Noah and Adam are just like rampaging through there with their swords and knocking walls down is like a huge security thing. And, you know, they could get thrown in the dungeon and stuff.
Probably no small amount of blasphemy too.
And this is something that was really easily forgotten, but there's Noah and the king. Scythrich, I think his name is.
Scythrich, I think I said, yeah.
So they're actually relatively close as brothers, like they like each other. Although Scythrich likes Noah a lot more than Noah likes him. But like they have to pretend that they're at odds for this like noble faction versus nouveau riche faction thing. And so there's this whole thing about like he was running around with a sword in the palace, but like I'm gonna have to throw him in jail and all that stuff. Not super important, just an interesting thing that they sort of pull that back in closer to the end of like this is important. So they all get out of this fire because Raeliana's gonna like jump out the 4th story window. She's got like a blanket rope that she's made that she's like going down the side because they've locked the door. She can't get out that way.
Try to roll when you land.
Yeah, right. But Noah comes in and rescues her. And so they're all out of the palace. And Noah's like, I have to go take care of this something or other. And so he goes off. And Raeliana's sitting there and she's like, I need to go after him. So she goes and Beatrice is confronting Noah. And so we get that moment of like, oh, is the original novel, is it going to come into play because they're going to fall in love and everything? And Raeliana's like, you know what? I'm past that. And so she goes and confronts them. And Noah's like, no, I wasn't going to fall in love with her. What are you talking about? And her hands smell like oil. She was the one who set the fire. And everybody's like, whoa. Turns out Beatrice has been adopted by one of the other dukes. And so now there's like this family versus family thing going on where because Noah's like, I'm going to fucking kill her because she tried to kill Raeliana. But he can't just do that. But he's trying to, but he's not allowed to. But he's gonna.
I feel like the first 2 seasons is the author inhaling to prepare to rapid fire speak.
Yeah.
The entire 3rd season.
No, and so I should say, I started reading this like basically right after it got picked. And I got through 30, 40 chapters in 5 days or so. I was trying to actively read a certain amount of chapters every day because there was a lot of them. But at some point, I just sort of fell off of it. Like it wasn't that I didn't want to read it. It just didn't pop into my brain to read. And so at the beginning of this week, I sort of went, oh crap, I need to get this finished. As I'm getting through the rest of it, when I got to about where you ended up, I just blew through the rest of it.
Yeah. No, I'm looking, I was like, I think I know where things are going. Like, I think we could record. Like, I'll read the rest. Wow. Yeah, no, they squeeze a lot into this.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so now we're at a point where basically everybody knows what the other person did. Like, all of the main characters, except for Justin, know that Vivian got the crystal that exploded. They know that Beatrice is trying to do some bad stuff. They aren't quite sure of the relationship between Beatrice and Vivian. But they know that they did something bad because Raeliana was like, yeah, they tied me up and tried to set me on fire. Like, but there's no evidence, so they can't like.
There's no evidence. There's a burnt castle.
Well, what I was thinking was like, why is Raeliana testifying, not evidence? But apparently it doesn't work that way.
Hearsay, Your Honor.
Right. I think generally the person who gets attacked gets to like get up on the stand and recount the whole thing. I think that's normally how that goes. But nobody saw it happen, so nothing we can do.
Yeah. I feel like if we investigate, we could maybe put together a timeline of their movements, prove that they were there at the time. Yeah, but yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
So anyways, there's this back and forth. There's this tension because like neither of them can do anything big at this point. However, Duke Noah is having Beatrice followed by like his covert team or whatever. Because he's like, as soon as she's alone, murder that bitch.
Yeah, that was going to be my suggestion.
But Beatrice actually does something sneaky and gets a carriage and sends like a lookalike away. And so that gets attacked. And then so now the other Duke is like, Duke Noah tried to kill Beatrice and this is bad and everything. At no point did he go, what did you do, Beatrice? But he's just like completely...
Well, actually, there's no evidence that I tried to attack Beatrice, so...
Well, no, he sets it up. He's like, there's a piece of a sword here that's obviously from Duke Windknight's knights, which is not true. But so he fabricated that evidence. And I think part of it is just like they're from rival factions. So he's gonna
just do whatever
to try and get, but it was also stupid because it's like at no point did he stop and go, why does Duke Noah hate you so much?
That Duke Noah. Well, because he's a jerk. That's why. Because nobody likes this guy. Because he's boring.
Well,
Team Justin.
So in order to sort of trap Beatrice and to some extent Vivian, they're like, we're going to set a trap. I'm going to be like alone, right? On the day of Vivian's wedding, I'm going to be alone. Beatrice is definitely going to try something. We'll do it then. She has a gun on her now, right? I don't know why she never did before.
I don't even know how to explain this, but there is something that will always make me laugh. And it is when somebody who is not supposed to have a gun has a gun.
But she should have had a gun the whole time.
But you forget though. You forget that guns even exist in this world. And it's like
she's gotten herself into so many bad situations already. Like as soon as she got kidnapped by Brooks or whatever his name is, at that point she should have then been carrying a gun at all times. Why did she not have a gun until the very end when they're like, I'm going to shoot this bitch. I need a gun now.
There is something so blunt and hilarious about a gun that when, like, I'll never forget, there's a famous Harry Potter fanfic. Everybody's read it. Now I'm blanking on the name. My Immortal. And at one point, the main character, who is an author self-insert, is like, and Voldemort told me I had to kill Harry Potter, and he handed me a gun. And I was like, I lose it every time I read that, because it's like, yeah, that would end the whole series right there. What if Voldemort just had a gun? That would be amazing. And so I just love the idea that the solution to this problem is like, let's just shoot her.
Yeah. Okay, so they're at the royal wedding, right? Raeliana goes into this one room and she's sitting there waiting, and it's like, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And the door opens and it's Vivian standing there in her wedding dress with this terrified look on her face. And Raeliana's got a freaking gun out, right?
You should be terrified.
And then Vivian falls over dead with a candelabra sticking out of her back.
A candelabra?
I think that's what it was.
That's not, I mean, that must have hurt.
Yeah.
That's not sharp.
So it turns out that Beatrice attacks Vivian and then tries to frame Raeliana because she's standing there too, and she screams. And then we're like, oh my God, what's going on here? We're going back and forth. All these people are coming in. The queen is dead. I think they actually got married, and this was after that. poor Vivian, no one seems to care that she's dead. Everybody's just like, oh, she's dead. Oh, we got to catch Raeliana. Oh, no, it's Beatrice. What's going back and forth? And like, Vivian just gets forgotten.
I'm Googling what a candelabra is to make sure it's what I think it is. Yeah, like Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast.
It's only
sticking
one.
Out of her back.
It's only just like one big long one. It's not like...
But like it holds a candle. It's not a knife.
Yeah, I don't know how it works, but that's what it looks like.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, so they're like, all right, Raeliana's locked up. We're going to lock up Beatrice as well. Are we? Raeliana passes out. Oh no, her memory reconstruction stuff is happening right now. This is a terrible time for that. So they're like, okay, put Raeliana over there in that room so she can recover, you know, put a guard there and all that. The Duke Blake and Beatrice are going to go down to this level, make sure they're guarded. We're going to figure out what's going on. Oh, except the high priest shows up, right? And he's like, I'm the high priest. Everybody has to listen to me. The king's there. They start ignoring him. I'm like, I don't know how this hierarchy works. This is crazy. So they put everybody
God,
aside.
King, country.
But Beatrice comes and she's like, look, this is the receipt for that jewel that exploded. Vivian bought it. And so Raeliana had this note and she knew that Vivian did that. And so she killed Vivian. And everybody's like, that's really suspicious the way all these work. But okay, we'll take your word for it right now. Everybody's just going to get locked up. The high priest goes, hey, guess what? I actually have another power. I'm going to touch this, and it's going to show who actually wrote it. Oh, it was actually Beatrice. This was after Beatrice and Duke Blake left. And so everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay. Like we thought, Beatrice was doing all this stuff.
Deus ex machina.
I don't know where everyone went at this point, but Beatrice shows up and is like, hey, guard, there's some suspicious people downstairs, and he leaves. And so she kidnaps Raeliana. Leaves the palace dressed as a maid with Raeliana like in a thing of laundry, right? Instead of just killing her right there, which she did sort of explain. But she takes her out in the middle of the woods, right? And she's got a knife and she's gonna kill her, right? And
how does this all happen? In like 40 chapters.
Oh, it's like 2 chapters that all of this culminates.
What?
It's crazy. So she's about to stab Raeliana, who's still passed out, and you're like, oh no, it's gonna go. End of chapter. Next chapter, she's got the knife. She had drove it down, but Raeliana woke up just in time and caught the knife above her head, right? And so there's this back and forth about, why won't you just die? You were supposed to die so that I could live. And, oh, but I'm in this world now. And why can't you, you could have changed your fate instead of trying to go into somebody else's body. There's all this back and forth, stuff. Right before Beatrice is going to try and stab her again, Duke Noah shows up, grabs the knife. He's like, get out of here, bitch. And
he doesn't kill her.
Beatrice is like, oh my God, my life. It's so horrible. This is all your fault, even though it's all her fault. And so Raeliana shoots her.
Okay. There can be only one.
There literally can only be one. She honestly, this was actually really refreshing because there's this thing about Beatrice was like, only one of us can live. They both are feeling like their spirits being tugged out. And Raeliana was like, okay.
Choose me.
Yeah. You're obviously being the bad person here, so you get to die. And she feels a bit bad about it, but not super bad, which I was like, yes, that's actually how this would go. Obviously, that person who's trying to kill you has to die.
No, I like this because the big tense arc I don't even think we addressed this, is that like Raeliana obviously wants to get with Duke Winright. Duke Winright obviously wants to get with Raeliana, but the reason they can't is because Raeliana is overburdened with guilt that like this is not her body. And she's you know, she has no right to this life or these people or any of that, and so she's just like I have to leave, I have to get out of here. And so yeah, a conclusion where she's like, you know what, no, I'm keeping it, I'm taking it, it's mine, you don't deserve it.
So she actually gets over that earlier. There's another plot that happens before this final one where some extremists attack the festival and like set off a bomb and everything. And she knows from the story that they're like down in the waterways. And so she's like, Noah, they're down there. Just believe me right now and just go after them because they're down there. And then she finds out that there's like a trap laid out down there. So she's like, I have to go after him. And she gets a gun from somewhere and she goes after him. And they like meet up and everybody, they've defeated people and it's like, this is great. But then one of the terrorists sets off another bomb and Noah like protects her, right? Except his arm gets like severely mangled and she's like, oh my God, this is all my fault. And so she just like tells him everything. She's like, I love you, but also I'm from a different world and all this stuff, right? The only other person she had talked to about this before was the high priest.
Yeah.
And so she's like, we aren't supposed to be together, but I love you and you need to know this. And that's how I know everything. And he's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
And then she's like,
Noah.
oh, right. I have this thing that the high priest gave me that's full of holy power. I'm going to heal your arm. And he's like, no, don't do that. What if you need it? And she's like, you need it, you idiot, and heals him. So they're all on the same page now. He's the only other person who knows. She actually tells Justin, like after the end of the story. So that was an important plot point where she's like, okay, Beatrice is obviously evil. Everything's different now. I'm just going to accept this. Here I am, right? So yeah. So she shoots Beatrice and that's pretty much it. Vivian's dead. Beatrice is dead. And now everybody can get on with their lives. And we get some nice wrap-up stuff. And everybody lives happily ever after. And then God shows up.
Oh, no.
And you're like, there's this one point at the very end of a chapter, like right after God shows up, that you're like, oh shit, God's going to do some shit. And then the next chapter is like, no.
Doesn't sound like God.
No, God just showed up to talk about some stuff. There's nothing actually bad going on here. It was just one last cliffhanger to mess you up. So God just is explaining like, yeah, souls and got swapped around and everything. It turns out that God was the person who killed Una originally by pushing her off the roof.
This is wild.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
This is fucking wild. God pushed Una off a roof.
Yeah. So God shows up because apparently God is like partially omniscient because he shows up, or she, it's a she, even though she's in a male body most of the time. She shows up and is like, hey, do you want to go back to Korea? And it's like, why are you asking that? You already know. Right? And so Raeliana
push me
is
off
like,
a
no.
roof again.
Yeah, right. Raeliana's like, no, I'm going to stay here. And God's like, cool. God goes to talk to, because they're like on a train. And they're like, oh, this one window's broken. Can these two people sit with you? And they're like, okay. And this really tall guy and a little girl come into the cart. And you're immediately like, that guy's really suspicious. He's got like his hat pulled down and everything. And Noah and this tall guy like go out onto the back of the train to talk or something. And you're immediately like, what the heck is going on here? And Noah is like, hey, you're God, right? And God's like, damn, you figured that out immediately. You are so good.
That's my boy. That's how I made you.
Yeah. And then the little girl is also God.
Okay.
So talking to both of them at the same time.
Wow.
And God's like, hey, Noah, would you let her go if she wants to go back? And he's like, I don't want to. And then God's like, well, good for you, because she doesn't want to go back. And like, that's it. That's the wrap up. God explains like why the souls got swapped and stuff, but like it was sort of unnecessary and also didn't really explain enough, because there's this whole thing about like, this is all just a story that God wrote, but also like, everybody has their own story, but God likes to reread stories. And there's so many questions that get brought up that like there's not a satisfying answer for. And I wonder if the original novel has like expounds on it more.
Bato commenters. I'm speaking directly to you now. When you feel compelled to post spoilers, I don't want to know who the romantic lead winds up with. I don't want to know anything about like the mechanics of reincarnation or anything. I want you to just put one line in on like chapter 20 that's like, by the end of this series, God himself will be talking to the protagonists.
Herself.
Whatever, themselves. God is going to show up and explain to you how Otome Isekai works.
It actually makes me wonder if that's a self-insert.
I mean, if it's
like,
in
is
the light
God
novel,
literally the person who wrote it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I interpret that. It's literally the person talking to their characters.
Right. So, happy ending. Noah and Raeliana get to live happily ever after. They have a child who is adorable, Arya. And then Raeliana gets reincarnated back into her original body with no memories. So it doesn't go through this cycle again. And Noah gets reincarnated into Korea and finds her.
My God. That's fine. That's a thing that happens in a lot of stories. That's fine.
It was sort of jarring because like the very last chapter of the actual series is like, the goddess said that I can find you in the next life. And I did that. And you get this like sort of half ending teaser that they found each other in the next life. But then the side stories start and it's like, and all this stuff happened and they had a kid and Justin ran away again because he definitely would, because the woman he fell in love with is now the Duchess and also his sister is dead. And I feel really bad for Justin.
But Justin, like, come on, your sister sucked. Like, oh boy. Yeah.
Actually, one of the funniest things in the whole series was in the side story. Justin is like traveling the world and he meets this like merchant guy who's got like a whole bookstore on the back of an elephant. And so this guy's like, oh, I'll take you into town. And they're like talking and everything. And then he goes, oh, you know, you got your heart broken. Well, how about you meet my daughter? Like maybe you'd get along with her. She's 59
Pass.
Justin's like, maybe next time.
Yeah. Yeah, pass. Sorry, man. Why doesn't God talk to Justin, huh?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't God walk up to Justin and just be like, sorry?
Justin gets no justice. And I don't think he did anything wrong.
His only crime was falling in love.
So first of all, and we skipped over this, he was originally away, and the reason that Raeliana didn't know anything about him, even though he's like the captain of the Royal Guard, is because he was away for like 3 years, because he originally fell in love with this woman who then like rejected him to go get married to someone with like a better title.
Oh yeah. I remember this.
Justin is just constantly being shit on.
This guy can't catch a break.
And like, I don't particularly like his characterization of like being that mischievous kind of thing, but also like, I don't think he did anything bad enough to be continually shit on like this. I feel really bad for him.
Get God on the phone. I want to know what's going on here. What's your plan, God? How are you going to make this right?
So
he's going to get reincarnated in Korea. He's going to get dumped again.
Yeah, right. But yes, everything happens right at the end. It's very busy. A lot of stuff going on. Like you said, it's like the last 20 or 30 chapters that just everything happens at once.
That's nuts. And I kind of love it. I love the hot mess.
I have a specific note about this. Do you remember I was like, oh, there's actually this other dark priestess that's left?
Yeah.
She's a whole character who's got like history and motivations and interesting characterizations and everything. Not introduced until like chapter 135. Like
just
a
good
whole
writing.
New character. That's
just good writing. Never let him know when it's going to end. Just always introducing.
It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, it got wrapped up. There's a lot going on, but I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for you to have a ton of opinions on because everything happens right at the end.
Well, I have, that will not stop me from having opinions, and that will not stop me from rating this.
Yeah.
On a rubric.
Before we get into that, because I think we need to start rubricing very soon. This has been going on for a while. There's just one more thing that I wanted to point out, which is we actually haven't talked about the best character.
Oh?
We didn't bring her up at all. Do you know who that might be?
I'm trying to think. I guess maybe her maid?
No, the maid's not in it enough.
No, that's what I was thinking. The best character.
There's a side character who's very close to another side character who is the best.
I honestly don't know.
She's an assistant.
Oh, the king's assistant?
Yeah,
oh, okay. She's very put upon.
Naomi is the best. Because as I mentioned before, the king is like sort of a jerk. He's like a prankster and a trickster.
I didn't find the king as annoying as you did.
I found him pretty annoying, especially after the first thing he did where he like kidnapped Raeliana. That was just like, this is too much. It's fine. Like, oh, I'm going to keep you around for a couple days. But like he keeps her for like weeks. And it's like, she's obviously uncomfortable. It's just, I wasn't having fun with that part. But anyway, so Naomi is the king's assistant. I think she's a baroness or something. She's got some title, but like she doesn't put up with the king's shit at all. And it is great. She's the best. But it's in such a like deadpan, I'm not actually being disrespectful way. She will say stuff and the king will be like, what did you just say? And she's like, nothing. I loved it. She was so great. And at the end, in the side stories, so Vivian's dead. So the king is like, I need to get married. He's like, well, maybe Naomi. Does she love me? I sort of love her. And she just shuts him down.
Oh, dang. Okay, I was going to say, I could see that going either way. It would be more fun for her to shut him down.
There's a hint that it might grow from there, but we
Yeah.
don't actually see it.
No, I think that's more fun. I like that.
Yeah. So Naomi is great. She doesn't get enough screen time, but the screen time that she does have, she makes the most of, and I love it.
She didn't have the same impact on me, but I do like her.
Yeah.
I get it.
The one thing that I'm still super confused about is sort of the family tree of the royals. So we know that Scythrich and Noah are brothers. We know that Noah's mom poisoned Scythrich when they were younger.
Yeah. Are they half brothers?
I think they're half brothers, but I'm not entirely clear.
Seems like something the book would probably make.
Yeah, from
apparent.
the way that I have it built in my head is that the previous emperor, I think he was the emperor, and after he died, the kingdom split. The emperor had 2 wives, and one of them he was like super in love with, and the other one was Noah's mom. And Noah's mom tried to poison Scythrich so that Noah could be the king, even though Noah didn't want that. But then also they couldn't punish her because she's the queen or something like that, and it would be like a political problem. But Scythrich didn't die. He just like his one leg got ruined or something. He walks with a cane now.
All the poison concentrated in his one leg.
Yeah, right. But then like the Scythrich's mom dies and the emperor's heartbroken, and so he dies too. And I guess Noah's mom died before that. It's not entirely clear.
It's super convenient.
And then there is already an empress or queen.
There's a child. I know that.
Yeah, there's a kid who Raeliana rescues from being murdered.
Yeah.
And we do
I thought that
see
was like a concubine, though.
we do see her from time to time. Yes, it's listed here that that's a concubine. Soroso. So I don't know, for whatever reason she's not the queen, and then Vivian is going to be the queen when they get married, and I don't understand how any of that works.
Well, I would guess, I don't know, the concubine, is the concubine highborn?
I don't know.
I was assuming that the concubine was like a lowborn
maybe
person, that there was no point in marrying.
But for whatever reason, she's not allowed to be the queen, I guess. And so they're going to have Vivian be the queen. He already has a son. His son's name is Seymour. And their last name is Chalmers.
Oh my God, really? Again, if that is on purpose, that is fucking gold. I love that. I love that.
Now, let's be clear. There's 2 different characters.
Superintendent Chalmers and Principal Seymour Skinner. This is a Simpsons reference.
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, if that's on purpose, that's gold. And if that's not on purpose, then I think there is a God, because that could not coincidentally happen.
Oh, I see here. Naomi is a countess. Naomi.
Oh, that's a little interesting to be a concubine.
No. That's Naomi.
Oh, no. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no information about the concubine. So anyway, yeah, that whole family tree structure, I was just like, I don't understand how this fits together. And I just have to like be like, okay, whatever. We'll just assume that the author knows what's going on.
Wild ride. That's what this one is.
Yeah. So I think that was all the notes that I had. Did you have any specific stuff you wanted to go over before we get into the
I think I called out most of my stuff as we went. And anything else I'll call out in the rubric.
Yeah. Okay. So time to rubric. I think it's probably a indication of how much we enjoyed this that we're 2 hours into this recording before we're starting rubricing.
This one is a lot of fun. I like this. It's a little messy, but
I don't. The episode probably is not at 2 hours yet, but okay. So as always, you can rubric along with us by going on our website and finding the Heroine Addiction rubric, which is linked at the top. We will be doing the romance version. This is definitely a romance, even though some of the romance is maybe a little questionable, but that's okay. That'll come out in the rubric. All right, so we're going to start off with content and ideas. Now,
I know what I'm picking, and I don't care. I'm picking a 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm going with as well, because there's enough stuff in here that I haven't seen before, but also it seems to be like a lot of the big tropes that it uses. So there's a mix that's going on here. I like the mystery aspects of it, even though I got spoiled on it early and I knew what was going on. I still was surprised by things, which I think you were as well, as I recounted what happened at the end.
No, this one added something to the genre. I think that twist of the magic with the reincarnation, I liked it. I think we could probably do without God showing up at the end, but that's fine. Author got to self-indulge, I guess. But
if God has to explain to you what happened at the end, you might have a problem.
Yeah. Can't say it's the best writing ever, but it definitely adds something to the genre. I think this has a place in the weird Otome Isekai curriculum I'm building.
Yeah.
of the
definitely
the canon texts that one must read to truly understand.
Yeah. I feel like this is a historically important.
A landmark.
So for pacing and structure, unfortunately, I'm gonna give this a 3.
Yeah, no, I went with a 3.
Yeah. So it's not terrible, but it's also not good. As we've shown, everything happens right at the end. And I say everything. There's plenty of stuff that happens, but like the whole first season, which is like 40 chapters or something like that, is like really slow.
Yeah, if you were gonna, obviously there was some weird planning that went on here, or perhaps a lack thereof. Because if you're gonna go fast and then go slow, if you're gonna change the pacing like that, you go fast with the boring stuff that everybody already knows. Like, yeah, okay, dukes, kings, whatever. Yeah, nobility, nouveau riche. Okay, that's nice. Cover that in 2 chapters. Don't cover the crazy stuff in 2 chapters. So yeah, I think there's. I don't think I had a problem with the pacing. I could say the first season might have been a little too slow. I could say that about almost every single Otome Isekai we've read. but then for the third season to like just wildly do the entire story all at once, too fast. It's a rare too fast.
Luckily, there's actually 4 seasons.
Oh, is there another season break in there?
Yeah. When I got to the end of the 3rd season, I was like, wait a minute. That felt too fast. What's going on here? I think the 3rd season was only like 25 chapters or something like that.
Because I noticed the season breaks. Okay, then I guess they don't have season breaks on Bato in this one.
Yeah, they didn't list it, which is I was really surprised when I hit that one. I was like, wait a minute. Here's the thing. I think the fact that everything happened very quickly at the end does make sense, because it's sort of like once the cards are on the table, you can't really draw it out more. Once Noah was like, oh, Beatrice and Vivian tried to kill Raeliana, I'm going to murder that bitch. It's like you can't put that back in the bag and like keep it going for 2 more seasons, you know?
Well, yeah, I'm not saying forget about it, but I'm saying like I think that deserves a little bit more attention. Like, I think the mechanics of everything that's going on deserve a little bit more attention and explanation. Yeah. And I think the fact that God shows up at the end to tell you how it all worked is an indication that maybe, like, you know, the show don't tell thing?
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of that. That is having God come down to tell you why it worked out that way.
It's not quite as bad as God going, this is why all this happened. They do a better job at making it a story element. But yeah, there's definitely a level of like, what are you doing right now to it?
Yeah. I don't think it ruins anything, but I think that's where 3 lands you.
Yeah.
Is I could structure this better.
If anything, I think this needed less chapters, just overall. So shorten the first 3 seasons. And that way, the last season, sort of just having everything happen all at once, wouldn't feel as weird and out of place. And maybe reading this week to week, you wouldn't have got the same feeling. But at the same time, I wouldn't have wanted to read this week to week because the chapters are pretty short. And I think I would have been really sort of pissed off having to wait.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to characters. For characters, I'm going to go with a 4.
I will also go with a 4.
I like most of the characters. Even the characters who annoy me are interesting. I would say in the first couple seasons, maybe just season 1 and 2, maybe getting into season 3, Noah is not sort of the best character. Like you said, sort of the plank of wood kind of thing. But it really feels like he develops a lot. And I think it makes sense what's going on because he sort of like starts out the series as like, he has to be this foil to the king. And so he's putting on an act all the time. But as the series progresses and he's falling in love with Raeliana, which actually he says he fell in love with her at first sight. He just didn't realize it. He like opens up with her and sort of becomes a more well-rounded character in that regard through their relationship. So you might start off going like, oh, he's boring and terrible and not a great male lead, but like it does come around a bit.
Okay.
As I said, I like him more than Justin in that regard, even though I feel really bad for Justin. I didn't like him as a romantic possibility for Raeliana. He teased her as much or more as Noah, but like Raeliana wasn't sort of, for the most part, wasn't saying no to Noah. There were parts where she's like, hey, don't do that. I don't like this. And he would like pull back and everything. But like for the most part, the teasing and back and forth there was, I don't know what the right word was, but I'll say welcome. Whereas with Justin's sort of like imposing himself all the time.
Justin's creepier. I'll give you that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think that he has bad intentions, but it's also like, hey, dude, that's not cool.
Yeah, it's not how you go about it. That's not how you go about it. No, I will give you that. His execution is bad.
Yeah. And he sort of doesn't give up until like the very end. And it's just like, come on, dude. She's rejected you how many times already? She's got a fiance. Everyone can see that they are in love, even if they don't say it themselves. Like, what are you doing?
I think Justin is hotter and more interesting, but he definitely, it is not attractive to not take no for an answer.
Right.
That has never made it.
Also,
well, but then the Duke doesn't take no for an answer.
But in a different way.
But we know.
And also, Raeliana, she fell in love with him pretty early on, even though she was lying to herself.
I don't get it.
But also, I don't think that what Justin did by being annoying like that is deserving of all of the shit that he gets.
Yeah, I don't think he's any more. I mean, there's definitely a few times where old Winwright puts himself between a door and the maiden.
Yeah.
And forces her to talk to him. I don't like that either. I think they're both pretty bad about that. But one thing I'll give it, in terms of character development and everything, is I think the dialogue is mostly pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the comedy works in this because it's like set up. You know the characters, you know how they feel about certain situations, and you know when they're being put in a bit of a spot, and you know that it's funny to do that. You know that they're playing off of each other. It actually does feel like an interaction and not just a world designed to cater to the protagonist. It, like I said, it feels lived in. They created a sense that these people don't stop existing when the protagonist closes their eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that deserves a 4 by itself, but I think they also do manage to make the comedy and the soap opera drama work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think characters, they did a good job with it. So I think that I'm not entirely sure what would bump this up to a 5 though. I guess
I think you could get me up to a 5 if the side characters got a little bit more attention.
Yeah, that's a thing. Because a lot of the side characters, like I really like the Win Knights. A lot of them are good characters. Adam and the two others, the one girl and the one guy, they're interesting. Adam's the only one who gets anything like real backstory. And so that's part of the problem. They don't really give you enough time with any of the maids. The maids are definitely sort of just like set dressing, which is, I don't know, a little bit annoying. We want to get a little bit more interaction there.
Most of the conversations I've found particularly funny or particularly like drama inducing were not the conversations between Raeliana and Winwright. Yeah. I think I just didn't get a lot of chemistry from them. And that's why I say, like, I think that's what I'm missing is like more of the either make me like those interactions more. But and again, I don't know if that's a me problem. If that's just that I don't like him.
You're gonna have to go read the rest of this and then like put some additional thoughts on Discord, because there's a lot in the last season.
Don't know if I'm going to like him. I don't like his personality. I mean, I'm sure like he can he could be a decent guy, but like I just think he's very boring. I don't like the type they're I don't like this type of guy, I guess. That's my thing. I don't like I guess he's the quiet type or something. And it's not doing it for me.
Yeah. The Raeliana's family, I think, does get a decent amount of backstory and stuff like that. I think that part was well fleshed out.
Oh, and I think it works to make her feel guilt about taking the body too.
Yeah.
When you have somebody who's really not your father telling you, how proud they are of you or something, that's...
Yeah, and they sort of did at the very end, they just sort of glossed over the fact that like, hey, guess what? Your original daughter was like super depressed and actually sort of like was evil a little bit, and now she's dead.
We like choose not to examine this.
Right. Because everybody's like, well, this new personality that she's got is great. Everybody loves her.
Oof. Sorry, Beatrice. Hey, God. What the fuck?
Yeah, right. They really don't examine that at the end at all.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, it was sort of a good reason because she had a horrible life after she got married. And she's like, why can't I be the protagonist or whatever? And it's like,
but that didn't happen.
Not like this.
All right.
Yeah. So romance.
I'll let you guide me because I'm missing key information about this.
Yeah. If you pick 3 based on where you're at, I'd be like, yeah, yep, that makes sense.
That's what I was leaning towards. Especially if if there's more coming. I don't think I can go as high as a 4. I just didn't like it that much.
Yeah.
And while I'll acknowledge some of this is me, I think some of it's the story.
I'm personally going to go with a 4. I really enjoy their relationship, the way they play off of each other, the way that it's like playful and bantery, and it feels really real to me. There's parts of it that are sort of like, oh, this is a little ridiculous, but for the most part, it felt like a real relationship between real people. The kind of relationship that like I have, that I see other people have, where it's like, oh yeah, like we're friends. This isn't just a, pink background, hearts flying around, lovey-dovey thing all the time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just don't know what she sees in him. I just don't like him. I don't know. I think it might be a personality thing. I think I just don't like him.
I think that's fair. Since we're talking about romance, I will point out they do bang before they get married. So,
oh my God! Well,
yeah, you don't have to wait until like the side stories for that, which is what happens in a lot of these, where it's like you guys are deeply in love and like you're all being like, oh, we're not even going to hold hands. That's so risque, right?
What is this mild spice nonsense? You crank that up to a hot.
It's actually really funny because when that happens, there's all this stuff going on about like Duke Blake is trying to get Noah sent to war as like payback. This is after the Beatrice reveal, and so they're having this like council meeting for days on end about like this possible war that's going to happen, and there's all this back and forth, and like Noah's not home for like most of the time, and she's like, she confronts him when he comes home at like 2:00 in the morning, and she's like, I haven't seen you in days, and then they bang, right? And then the next morning, Noah shows up slightly late to the meeting, just like beaming, and like he's like, I feel great. I'm here to spoil all of your plans, and I'm so energized right now.
Oh my God. That is cute. I'll give you that. That is cute.
Yeah, and that's the thing again. It's like so much stuff happens right at the end. It's like, yeah. if if you finish this before this episode gets released, I'll go in and modify your score.
If I change it, I might not.
A score that will not change: art competency.
Where are you at with this?
3.
I'm at a
This is
3.
a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, was I missing something? I don't know.
No. It's not bad, but it's like this is
webtoon.
just it's just so standard. It doesn't do the standard the best, so it doesn't go up to a 4. And obviously, it's not doing anything new and interesting, so it's definitely not a 5.
Yeah, points for resourcefulness, like I said, but there are other comic books where people draw stuff, so it's like I can't.
I would say like there's nothing in this that's bad as far as the art goes, but also like the coloring could be better, like a lot better.
There's nothing bad. It's just very like you did your job. I don't know what to say. Meets expectations.
Yeah. Which is also why for visual effects and stylistic flourish, I'm also going to go with a 3.
Yeah, Sam. It's you did the chibi stuff when you needed to do the chibi stuff. You did the like blush when you needed to do the blush. Angles are good. I mean, it's all just like I would say professional quality, but that's kind of the expectation here.
I think it's slightly below professional quality.
Really?
Only because like they don't really do shading and lighting. There's not really much in the way of effects. The panel layout is fine, but it's not really interesting or anything. There's only like 1 or 2 places where they do one of those like long panel shots that sort of makes you scroll and makes you go, oh, I'm revealing the thing and everything. It's just, there definitely could have been more.
I'll say this. I think it's professional, but it doesn't seem like it's your full-time job.
And
seems like this was one of many projects you were working on, and it did not get your full attention.
It could be that it's just like the age that this is, that they just didn't have as much experience back then.
Could be. Have we seen this artist before?
I'm looking it up now. Okay, it looks like they have done a couple other series, but I'm not seeing anything that I recognize.
Well, we can't say anything more about it then.
Oh, wait a minute. This artist might also do There's No Use Hanging On, which is interesting because that is not a good looking series at all. But I can't say 100% that that's the same person. But anyway, so yeah, it's fine. The art is fine. The flourish is fine. It's just, it could be better. I probably would have been a bit more hooked on it if the art was a little better. Like, I noticed that the art was par. I would say par.
Mid, as the kids say.
Yeah. I don't think the art detracted from the story. I'll say
No,
that.
no.
There were times when I couldn't figure out what was going on, but it wasn't because of the art.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah. But now we have to talk about the very most important part of the rubric, personal preference.
I think a 4.
Yeah, this is a 4 for me.
Yeah, I was almost at a 5.
Really?
I had a lot of fun with this, but
Well, okay, maybe you'll go up to a 5 then. Go finish reading it.
yeah, maybe that one will go up to a 5. We'll see.
So your romance and your personal preference might go up. Personally, after having finished this, I'm still at a 4. I actually probably would have been at a 3 if I had stopped where you stopped.
Wow,
So
really?
I think that's,
I think I like this a lot more then.
yeah. I did enjoy it, even up to where you stopped. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like one of those ones where I'm like, oh, I'm really hooked on this. I need to keep reading it. However, once I got to the end, I was definitely hooked on it. There's just enough stuff in there that put me slightly off that I can't give it a 5. But I still really, I did enjoy it, and I'm glad I read it.
Interesting. You don't have a lot to say. Maybe I'll see if I adjust. But like honestly, I was having a lot of fun. I
need an
liked that
addendum
something
now.
different was happening. Like I think that I couldn't care less about the romance. People get weird about me using that phrase incorrectly. But I couldn't care less about the romance, but I really liked the witchcraft and the body stealing and all that stuff. I thought that was cool.
And it's you'll definitely go up to a 5 then, because Iosa is like unhinged and amazing.
Well, then screw it. I'm going up to a 5. I'm at a 5 now.
You're gonna pre-5 it.
I'm gonna buy that 5 on credit.
Right.
Yeah, I like it. I did like it, and I liked the side character interactions a lot. There was one panel that made me actually laugh, which is rare, and it was where the one guy who's kind of like a junior knight or something. He's going between the he's going between the captain of the guard and the duke, and the captain of the guard has led him to believe that Raeliana is having an affair. Justin,
I don't think he's a junior. I think he's one of
he's like the right hand man or something. Yeah,
he's one of the
he's
top
running.
knights.
So he's
But
running
he's
up.
such an idiot.
He's running up.
I love him.
To be like, Raeliana, tell me you're not going to do it. And she's like, do what?
Yeah.
And then the next panel is like,
Don't do it, my lady.
the next panel is like him just like dumb anime face going like, and then the caption is, this is the face of a man who just realized he can't accuse his boss's fiance of having an affair publicly. And, and I was like, yeah, you got me there. That was good. That was good.
He has such a great interaction with oh god, I just said her name. The dark priestess.
Iona or something.
Isoa. God, what's her name? Crap. I can't remember it because when I read the name, I was like, I don't know how to pronounce that, so I can't remember it properly. But he's the one who goes to get her from the prison, and it is such a good interaction because on the one hand, he's a moron, but also he's capable and like, all that stuff. But she's crazy and also a trickster. And so there's this back and forth. It's amazing. You're gonna love it. Yeah, you're gonna have to put in an addendum on the Discord. Hey, listener, go on our Discord, and so you can catch up and see where Ben ended up here.
I'll let you know.
And so because of all of those things, for recommendation strength, I'm going with a 4.
I'm at a 4. I think this is one that could introduce people to the genre. I don't think it's got any crazy inside baseball stuff.
This might actually be better if you don't know what any of the tropes are.
Yeah, I think this is pretty good. I think this is a pretty good introductory one, and I think it would work for a general audience. You'd have to be willing to go along with it to a point.
Yeah.
That's why I don't give it a 5. But if you're willing to give it the benefit of the doubt on a few things, then I think it could be a weak recommendation to a general audience, and I think Otome Isekai fans would find a lot of interest here.
Yeah. I do think this is probably one of those ones where if you are an Otome Isekai fan and you've read other series or a bunch of other series, you should definitely read this. That said, there is an anime. The anime for this already came out. It's only 12 episodes, and it only covers up to a little bit after she meets the high priest. So it's not the complete series. I watched like the first 3/4 of the first episode. I don't feel compelled to watch the rest of it. It really just looks like they animated the manhwa. Like they're not doing anything extra. It didn't look bad to me. I seem to remember some people saying the anime was really bad. Maybe it is. Like I said, I didn't watch a whole lot of it. From what I did watch, I don't think it's bad. It just wasn't for me because I had already read it, and it was basically just like reading it again, but it's in motion. So, when I watch a series that is of a series that I've read, I need it to do something interesting with it, make it compelling, and have there be a reason for me to experience the story again. Thinking about stuff like Spy Family and Heroine and Chainsaw Man, those all elevated the story with music and voice work and doing different camera angles and everything. So even though they were doing the same story beats, they elevated it. Where this anime just seems like, yeah, we just took the manhwa and animated it shot for shot. And it's like, okay, you can do that, I suppose. It's gonna reach a different audience. But for me, who already read it, it's like, whatever. And I would sort of recommend that people read it rather than watch it, because you can read the whole thing. It's done. Whereas the anime, not done. There's only one season. So.
Yeah. I don't know if there will be a second.
All right. So we both ended up at 71. Your personal preference pushed it over the edge.
Mathematical precision.
Which actually means that if you go up on romance after you read the rest of it, you'll be at a higher score than me.
Maybe. Oh, there's a lot riding on this. I want to like it more than you. I actually want to defend this. As much as I don't like Winwright. Like he's not I don't dislike him. Like yeah. I'm fine with the romance. I just didn't think. I guess it's kind of like what you said with like real life. Like if you're watching like I don't know, like if you're watching a friend enter into a relationship and it's going well and everything, and you're like, yeah, I'm happy for you, but I also don't really care that much about this. Like, I mean, I'm not. Yeah, it's cool. Good for you, man.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. I felt more of a connection to it. I guess because of that, the way that they interact felt so real to me, and like fun, I guess would be the right word. The teasing and all that stuff. But again, yeah, so much stuff happens right at the end. It's like, yeah. If you don't finish it, you're sort of missing out. Well, I think that'll do it. Do you have any last thoughts?
No, I think we've gotten all of my thoughts squeezed out of my brain. Now I need to eat a sandwich.
Well, before we go today, we have to pick what we're gonna put on the poll for next time.
Oh my god.
So I'm gonna leave up the two that we previously had on there. So we have I Shall Master This Family, one of my favorites. We have a manga, May I Ask for One Final Thing. And for the third one, I thought we'd do something a little different and have you pick the third one.
Oh no. Okay. I'm choosing Revolutionary Princess Eve because it reminds me of Revolutionary Girl Utena.
That is an excellent choice. And I'll tell you why. It's not really a spoiler because it happens like in the first chapter, but Princess Eve wants to dismantle the slavery system.
Hell yeah.
I think this one, I haven't read it in a while because it's been on a hiatus, but I think it might be back soon. Let's see. So we got to the end of season 2 and the official one. Let's see here. Okay. It's not back yet, but I think.
Tell you what, I'm going to disagree with some of these comments. What's with Tapas changing the title? The original title is so much better. The original title. Princess imprints a traitor. Or The Traitor Conquers Princess. Traitor Conquerors Princess. No, it wasn't better, actually. You're wrong. That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Okay, so apparently they're in the middle of working on it, but there's not a date yet.
Well, factor that into your voting choices.
Oh God, it's returning in 2025. Okay. Well, at least we get the first 2 seasons. But yeah, I think that's a good choice. So our listeners can go on Patreon, and if you join as a patron, all the tiers get to vote, and you get to pick between those 3 of what we're going to cover. So make sure and check that out. All right, well, that'll do it for this episode of Heroin Addiction. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We had a lot of fun with this, as you can tell from the timestamp. Yeah, I think we're recommending this, so make sure you check out The Reason Raeliana Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion. As always, I want to thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart's a retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. They got lots of cool stuff you can't get outside Japan, except for Kit Kats now. Apparently you can get those down the road from Ben.
Hell yeah.
But our listeners can check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off their first order. And of course, we want to know what people think, so hit us up on social media. Tell us what you think about the series that we covered, and tell us if you've got any recommendations. This episode was a recommendation from Rena, so thanks again to Rena. And obviously we'll check stuff out that gets recommended. So you can find all our social media links on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. And you can also leave comments on the episode post there, as well as check out other posts and reviews and stuff. Ben's got a couple out there. And every time I go and post the new episode and I see a review you've put up there that you didn't tell anybody about, I'm just like, okay.
Hey, it's that I'm getting it's search engine optimization. I want you to find it through your Google search results. But if you want to read my reviews, it's just a cross post to my Goodreads.
Well, the best place to talk to us is on our Discord, which you can also find a link for out there on our website. But we have some good conversations out there. We got a nice little community going, and we really appreciate chatting with people on there. So make sure to check that out. As I mentioned, check out our Patreon. Besides getting to vote on the episodes, on what we're going to cover on heroin addiction, you also can get the high-quality stereo version of the podcast early, as well as bonus episodes and other things. So, and we'd like to hear what perks people would like. So, we're willing to sell ourselves out for money. So, of course, we want to shout out our patrons. We got a couple here. So at our Reincarnator tier, we've got Cake Dwarf and Moon. At our Merchant tier, we've got Kill Hour. And last but not least, as we've already mentioned, at our Commoner tier, Rena. So thanks so much to all our patrons. Be sure to check our regular podcast, That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster. We very recently did Review Stravaganza. So we've got a couple recommendations for people out there. I think there's a couple isekai that I recommended that I think Otome Isekai fans would enjoy. So make sure you give that a listen. And if you can't get enough of Ben talking about stuff, you should check out his other podcast, Words About Books, where the most recent episodes, I think Otome Isekai fans would really be into.
Yep. Oh my gosh. I'm blanking on the name.
A Throne of
Glass. I keep wanting to say A House of Glass and Thorns. No, it is Throne
That's
of
close
Glass.
to the other one.
Yeah.
The first Sarah J. Maas one you covered.
Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. It is definitely one of the novels that people get reincarnated into.
Yeah.
If you like that setting, I think you'd like that. I
did think it was interesting that you actually went long enough with that you had to split it apart.
Yeah. And Otome Isekai fans might be proud of me because I used my Otome Isekai knowledge to predict future plot points in this novel.
Yeah.
So be proud of me, guys.
But as we mentioned, you also covered A Court of Thorn and Roses a while back, so that's another one that Otome Isekai fans would probably be interested in. So make sure you check out Words About Books. Well, that'll do it for today. So thanks for listening. We hope you had a good time. Now I've got to go, as I've got an appointment with a merchant in a back alley. I don't know. The ending felt a little disappointing.
Oh no.
It wasn't bad, but it was also sort of like, that's it? That was it? And I know it's pronounced Raeliana because that's how they pronounce it in the anime.
There you go.
Oh, this is a name that I wasn't sure how to pronounce. Eunha.
Yuna.
Yuna.
That's what I would say.
I was really confused because it seemed like in the anime it's like a different name.
Yuna, maybe? Like, I don't know.
No, it does. Oh, probably because the name's the other. Oh no, it says right here. I'm looking at the wiki for it. Her name is Park Una.
Yeah.
And then it says known as Rinko Hanasaki in the anime version. No wonder I was confused. Completely different name. Why did they do that?
They had to make her Japanese. It's too Korean.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yep.
And it's literally Korean, whatever that's called,
Yep.
versus kanji.
This is the Joey Wheeler and Yu-Gi-Oh of Japan.
Huh. I don't think I've ever come across this before.
There's not a lot of Japanese adaptations of Korean stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, here's some interesting information that will go after the end of the episode. The name Rinko means dignified, severe, cold. Oh, Rin is dignified, severe, cold, and Ko is child.
Yeah. A lot of girls' names end in Ko.
And then Hanasaki is flower blossom. Oh, that's interesting. Hana is flower or blossom, and Saki is blossom. So
I knew Hana was flower. I'm not.
Blossom.
I knew Saki. Yeah.
Listeners, most things don't translate 1-to-1, so that's why that doesn't make sense. But the Korean, the name Yuna comes from the Sino-Korean word. I can't read that, but it means Milky Way.
Oh, okay. Okay, like the galaxy.
Yes.
Not the candy bar, obviously.
Which is interesting that the translation for those names aren't the same thing at all.
Yeah, I wonder if they. So look, I honestly don't know much about the Korean language. I know. I don't think they use any Chinese characters anymore. I think it's all Hangul. But I wonder if like the Chinese characters for her name. What I would have done is like, what would the Chinese characters for her name be in Korean, and then just read them Japanese. But that might not make any sense at all. It might not even sound like a name. So
I'm sure someone made a decision at some point for some reason, and that's why we ended up here. I just don't know what that decision was.
There was a big thing, like, this is just a little bit of trivia if this is going after the episode, but, in World War II, a bunch of Koreans wound up in Japan for some reason. I don't know what happened there. Japan, everybody forgot. Nobody even remembers how they got there.
They just, appeared to... Maybe they were isekai'd.
Yeah, as slave labor. And after World War II, they were like, okay, well, we don't have slaves anymore, so get out. And a lot of them didn't get out. And that native Korean population it's still there. And they factioned off into North and South Korean allying subgroups. And some of them have chosen to assimilate to Japan by, learning Japanese, becoming naturalized citizens, and taking on Japanese names. And
they still get discriminated against. It didn't do them any good. So.
Yeah. you can find many, many stories of Japanese parents not wanting you to date a Korean man. Yeah.
Well, just to be the slightest bit fair to those parents, if my daughter brought home a man who was allied or aligned with the North Korean government, I'd probably be like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work.
Get that commie out of here.
Hey, I'm all in for commies, just not horrible authoritarian commies.
There's also a lot of stories of Japanese communists fleeing to North Korea and realizing that was the greatest mistake of their life.
Mm-hmm. Funny how that works.
Yeah. Hang on.
You all right?
Hang on.
Something's going down.
They're getting there. They're getting there. Okay.
That time I picked a series from the same list to read next time.
I keep wondering when you'll run out of drug lingo.
It's getting hard because I don't want to repeat myself, but it's like, what else is there? Oh my God. Every time now I'm like, what am I going to say?
I'm going to freebase some Korean black tar manhwa.